Welcome to Third Floor Views, a production of Chesapeake Family Life, where we talk about health, education, and living with kids. I'm your host, Laura Boycourt. Today, we'll be talking about the college application process, and joining us are Elizabeth Almeter, Director of College Counseling at Garrison Forest School in Owings Mills, and Lee Norwood of Annapolis College Consulting in Severna Park. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Absolutely.
I love Chesapeake Family Life. It's like my favorite magazine. So thanks
Oh,
for having
I'm
us.
so glad. Thank you for making this happen to both of you. Elizabeth, I was wondering if you could start just by telling us about your background in education and specifically your work in college counseling.
Absolutely. So I'm in my third year at Garrison Forest, and I'm the Director of College Counseling. And prior to my arrival at the school, I was the Director of Counseling, working with school counselors and college counselors at Calvert Hall College High School, so an all-boys Catholic school. And, going back in my path, that was there for 6 years. And before that time, I was on the college side. So I worked at Loyola. It was Loyola College then, now Loyola University. And I worked in undergraduate admission, recruiting students, working with students, reviewing applications. So having that experience prior to my arrival on the high school side, it just seems like a natural fit into what I'm doing now. And every day I'm able to tap into what I did in the past and kind of see it from a different view.
Fantastic. And Lee, what about you? What did your road to being an educational consultant look like? And then after that, what services does Annapolis College Consulting provide? Counseling, excuse me.
Thank you. And so I am consulting, where Elizabeth is counseling, and there's a little bit of a difference. But I came to this because I was a pharmaceutical rep for 23 years, and I hated every day of it. It provided a great lifestyle for my family, and I was there and able to raise my kids. But at a networking meeting, I met someone who owned Annapolis College Consulting. We became close. I trained with her nights and weekends for about a year and a half, and I bought the business 3 years ago, and I'm hundreds of students in now and absolutely love it. When you talk about what do I do for students, I would say I'm kind of like a personal trainer at the gym. You can have a gym membership. You can work out at home. You can work out at the gym alone. You can join a group fitness class. For me, I work with a lot of public school kids, and that's that group fitness class. I'm going to get you the results a little bit faster and really just for what you want. So we help lower family stress through the college application process.
Well said. Wonderful. So let's jump in and talk about the timeline. I know we've got 4 years of high school. I suppose let's look at, when do high school students really begin the college applications process? I know there are tours, considering things to include on their applications, like extracurricular activities, volunteer work, all the things that ultimately go into that packet. So where does that timeline begin? Elizabeth, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. So when I'm asked that question, and not that we have this crystal ball, but my first response is, and I truly believe it, it's the first day of high school. And that's not to say that it is college all the time, because I know, as an educator as well as a parent, if I talk about something too much, I'm going to not have the momentum. I'm not going to have the attention to the matter. So it is a matter of thinking in ninth grade, a student acclimating to a high school setting, managing coursework. Ninth grade classes matter. And we're building that foundation. And then from a college counseling perspective, the way we're structured at Garrison Forest and with our students, we are available from ninth grade. 10th grade, we have classes that are built into the curriculum. So we have some test prep, we have some career interest to kind of think about, what problems do you want to solve? Do you even know what that is? What classes do you gravitate toward? Thinking about course selection. And then we layer on top of that more of the college planning process with other courses we have for junior and senior year. So instead of having a student do it from the beginning and talk about it constantly, we are very deliberate on our approach, and learning about the student, building a trust throughout the years, and a rapport. So we are getting to know the student in different activities through the different programs. So when it is a matter of helping a student and a family build out a college list that's balanced, we're able, rather than just to pick school names, we're able to kind of guide and direct and help them reflect. So when it is in fact time to apply to colleges senior year, the fall of, they feel like they've been doing it, right? They've been doing it from ninth grade on, and it's a continuation. And that's just one part, extracurriculars and such. That engagement's a whole nother.
And that's great. To your point about how you you're there with them from those beginning days, it's neat because your input as a counselor, it plays a factor too, because you've seen what they have been interested in, their strengths, their growth, and that can help better inform, the institutions that they might look at, which is great that you mentioned that. Lee, what have you seen in those early days of a typical student's application timeline?
It's a little bit different for me. People usually come and find me when they feel that they need help. I would love to have everyone starting in ninth grade and be intentional, but there's not enough of me to go around. That's the huge value of a school like Garrison Forest. I mean, they are preparing you the whole time. I am getting more of the, oh, yikes, college isn't like it was when we went. We think we're going to need help. So I would say we really turn up the volume second semester, sophomore year. But I get kids as late as the beginning of senior year when they panic. We have to do the same amount of things. You just have to compress it. And it's way better if you just have a very intentional timeline, but I don't have the luxury of having that that often.
No, that does make sense. And, no matter where you might join a student in their sort of trajectory towards college, it's important. So let's fast forward to senior year, like you were just talking about, Lee. What does senior year look like? Again, some students might be a little bit behind the eight ball. Some may have been, planning strategically since freshman year. But what are we looking at in senior year, Elizabeth?
In senior year, the summer prior, I'm even going to start there.
Yeah,
it's a working summer, right? And I'm not saying, I mean, there are many students juggling work, which I think is fabulous if they're able to have a job here and there. But they are continuing with college visits. So yes, many schools don't have the student population there and the activity on campus, but there's something to be said about going on a campus and seeing it outside of the virtual programs and the web offerings available at schools. Don't get me wrong, they're fabulous, and colleges and universities have put so much energies into those virtual tours and such. But getting on a campus, you just get a feel, and I'm not saying fireworks, but good sense of feel of would I feel comfortable? Could I see myself at this dining hall and such? And so students at the summer prior, it is a working summer. The common application, a big application that many of our students apply through, is open. We are learning about supplemental essays that are there. So again, it becomes real. It's figuring out, okay, you've been thinking about it and that like on higher level, and now it's that like it's go time. Right? Have you taken tests? I know we'll probably touch on this a little, but it's kind of doing that inventory. What have you done? What can we do in the summer or in the fall, early fall, so we are efficient and also meaningful with next steps, because there are those deadlines and they're real deadlines. And then there's school on top of everything else.
Just, no big deal. Right. Lee, what about you? Again, you mentioned that some students come to you sort of in a bind senior year, but what might that look like for you on some of the senior year obligations?
I just can parrot what Elizabeth said. I mean, the best thing that you can do for yourself is be prepared and have that Common App pretty much ready to go by August 1st. That is the day that juniors become seniors, August 1st. So in my perfect world, you would have that application complete. Once that is complete, it's like a little Roomba. It moves around and attaches to the schools where you want to apply. Those schools can often ask you to do additional work. University of Maryland's 4 additional questions. A school like Vassar might be 3 additional essays. So we can't really pull the cord on that too soon because they don't officially come out until the 1st. So we want to do all that work, like Elizabeth said, to get ready with that Common App so that these kids can go in the early round of the applications. And I then tell them if they get everything done by November 15th, which is a big day, they can enjoy the rest of senior year, but also have that regular term. Say they go to some Ohio State football game in the middle of the snow and come home and say, I had the fireworks, that's where I'm going. We have that regular admissions decision period to kind of pick up some of those pieces.
Okay. And that's a great segue to the question about the applications. We've got the Common App, individualized applications. What do they look like and what do they require these days? Is there a lot of variation depending on the institution? It's been a while since I've been in this game, so I really have no idea. So pretending that I'm a parent who has no idea about what types of applications, maybe you can enlighten us. Lee, do you want to start? And then Elizabeth?
Sure. So the Common App is just that. It's common. It's common to a number of schools. And for the majority of the kids, I'm in Maryland, we're on the East Coast. Most of our schools are going through the Common App. That is that basic soup broth that has everything from your school, your grades, your teacher recs. You can pull in your test scores and the personal essay, college essay, whatever you want to call it, that goes in there, and your activities. So that is kind of who you are. Then as you add schools to it, you have additional work to do. There is also a coalition app. I don't use that often. A universal app that I've never seen. And then you have the kids who want to go to school in California or Texas, and they both have their own state applications. But I think the Common App is the most common. And would you agree?
I agree. Absolutely. And it's one of those things. I mean, I'm not going to go which application is better. We think about, again, efficiently, what is best for our students' time and energies. And now, I mean, here in Maryland, a good portion of students applying to our flagship, now College Park is on the Common Application. So that is a big, I mean, there were a lot of celebrations when that changed. So that is significant. The one I would add to, Lee, is we have some students with the UCAS system. So for study abroad, so not internationally, that could be a whole nother show, right? I mean, in terms of the specifics on the different applications and in the UK and the different systems there. So that's a different sort of beast. But Common Application, I really do not see a reason not to use it. And colleges will say the same. Yes, they may have their own individual one, but really there's no benefit. And it's for the students' best use is the Common Application.
I do want to add an asterisk. Just because you can apply to 50 schools using the Common App, don't do it. Our whole job is to have a good handful, 8 schools that you would love to go to any of them and have an intentional plan around that, not to just go willy-nilly and just keep adding. What is it for? Your ego? I mean, if you don't know you want to go there and why you want to go there, you don't want to abuse that Common App. And that's the difference of when I went to school, I filled out 3 applications and my hand was tired. I was done.
Right.
These kids can fill out this one application and add a lot more schools. So I think that's what working with a counselor is really to be intentional about what is on your list. Why is it there? Did you get the good feeling when you were there? Lead with education. Look at, the direction you're going to go, the ability to pivot when you change your mind, and just make sure you're doing everything for the right reason.
Right. And I think number wise, that's why numbers have gotten so big. For a bunch of different, but knowing electronically, it's so much easier to say submit to pay, submit, because most of the Common Application is done. And then you need to add on with the Roomba, right? The additional, the additional pieces. But that becomes hard. And Lee, we, in terms of advice, very similar in terms of approach. Guidelines when we're asked, well, how many on average do students apply to? I mean, it depends year on year, but we're hovering under 10, depending, again, circumstances, it can lead differently. But if a student asks or suggests that they're wanting to apply to more than 10, I say, I need to know reasons. Like, get out those fingers and give me a reason as to why. And it's not only for me, I want to hear it, but I want you to hear yourself, because the applying, that takes work. The application, the essays, but to manage these applications, the supplements, are you applying to the honors program? Whoa, this could become a full-time job. And for those who are kind of catching up, it can, and even if those who aren't, it takes a lot of work to manage these pieces. And that's after it's submitted.
Great points. We had mentioned test scores before briefly. I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a recent trend of either a pause in requiring test scores or a full stop in requiring them at some colleges and universities. What's the latest with that?
So I need an hour. I need an hour because it depends. And that is what I'm going to paint on the wall behind me. In the zip code where I am, the majority of my students can afford to test more than once. Their parents know that they can test more than once and they can afford a tutor. So all of my kids take the test because they're going to judge you on your curriculum. The curriculum at Garrison Forest is very different than the curriculum at Broadneck High School. So your grades are going to be based on the school where you go. That standardized test, everybody took the same one. And did your grade there show that you are ready for college level curriculum? So that's one reason my kids test. There's many reasons to not, but from where I'm coming from. The second thing is sometimes it turns into money, honey. You can look, there's an example. Anybody can go right to University of Mississippi and pull up a grid. If they have this GPA and this SAT, they get this money. If they didn't, they have to write another essay if they don't have that test score to back it up. So for me, all of my kids test, and sure, there are some kids who aren't good at it, but it's based on Algebra 2. And if you can't nail that, you shouldn't go to MIT. There's plenty of great schools for you to go to, but it really is showing readiness. So MIT actually just put testing back in to their curriculum because it was allowing for a little bit more willy-nilly, hey, I'll reach, throw a Hail Mary. And I think you really need to know why, and do you fit academically at these schools?
Elizabeth, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think we could do a couple hours right on this topic, and it really, have schools been test optional in the past before the pandemic? The answer is yes. What I have seen from my experience prior pandemic, again, the pause of COVID and knowing it's still happening, but you know, the layer of it on college admission is that students and families started believing that colleges are test optional. And that's something that I felt like in the past, it wasn't the confidence, like, well, they say they're test optional, but is that really a thing? And here's my thought on that is, we advise our students to take a test, SAT or ACT. That is not saying we're recommending they submit the test with their applications. But what I have found is that we're in that, again, I'm thinking of juniors or in the spring getting information, gathering their resources, taking the test, taking it once, seeing where it is. Are you, did you do your best? Do you feel like you could have prepped more? Did you have an off night beforehand so you didn't feel on your game? And then assessing, do you take it again? Now we have so many options with SATs and ACTs. The dates that are available, it used to be to the spring, there was a stopping period, and then again in the fall. That's no longer. There are tests, and ACT and SAT are so much more similar than they have in the past. But it is a matter of which test does a student feel more comfortable with, and strategies and taking it. And then with what Lee said, it's one of those, like, testing wise or for money, take it, assess. Is it better? Is your application, does your test score add value to your application? Does it not? So it's one of those, it's not one size fits all. It really is a matter of thinking about what is best for each college, and then making a deliberate choice there too. So it's, I recommend taking it once, at least once, ideally twice, seeing and then assessing if it should be sent or not.
Take the test. Message received. What types of decisions are there? I know personally, I went early decision. I was certain that my college, my early decision college was where I wanted to be. Luckily, it worked out. We've got regular, early action. Can you both speak to the different options? What are the pros and cons of both? Elizabeth, would you like to start with that?
Absolutely. I think one of the best things, because it's really confusing, and I think to me it's confusing, of there's, early action, there's priority, there's restricted early action, and then there's ED1 and ED2. So rather than define each and every one, I think it's important for the student and family to be informed about what the options are, and then a matter of looking to see then, well, how does that apply to me? So the part that I want to kind of quickly emphasize is early decision is the binding contract. Students can apply early decision to one school, and if admitted, withdraw their applications at other schools and deposit at that school. So for some, if they've done their research, they've done their visits, they have been engaged online with virtual programming, they know it's a good fit. They have run the net price calculator online, or had a pre-read on their finances before applying early decision, then they feel this, I can see myself here. And then if a student's admitted, then senior year looks very different. They can focus back on senior year and academics, but this is not something a student and family can just do casually, right? There needs to be an investment of time leading up to it. And the part that, I'm saying now in my career more than I ever have, a lot of it's strategy too. And what I mean by that, when looking at the admission plans offered at a school, do they have early decision, the binding contract, or not? And if they do, what percentage of first year students are filled in those early rounds? Yes, there are athletes and such, but is it an advantage for a student? Are they pulling about 50% of their first year class in those early rounds? If so, strategically, the family really needs to take a hard look to see if this is a good option.
Lee?
So there's the early round with lots of different letters and ways that you can go. And then there's the regular round. My kids, I encourage them to go early because sometimes that is where the money is. So I don't believe anyone should have to pay full price for college. Now, that doesn't mean anyone should be able to go to any college and not pay full price. There are subtle nuances in how this comes together. But if you are going to try to qualify for merit aid, which in the old days we called scholarships, some of the schools you have to apply in that early round. So rather than whittle out which one, all my kids go early, but you have to be ready to go early. And some students aren't. Some students need that first semester senior year to show an upward trajectory that they're ready for college. Maybe they just tanked sophomore year. It's okay because it's all in how you recover. So that student might be better off waiting for the regular round. So there are lots of moving pieces, and I love the puzzle.
That's great. This is something I'm really curious about, just because things have changed, so dramatically and rapidly with email and social media, things like that, just correspondence. What is your advice on interactions between college admissions officers? What type of correspondence or communication is appropriate? What is appreciated between a would-be prospective student and an admissions rep? I didn't know if either of you wanted to comment on that.
Go, Elizabeth. You did.
All right, you want me to? I think in terms of demonstrating interest, the student needs to lead. Does that matter? Not at all schools. They do not. There's some schools that will take that into consideration as they review decisions, but I think it's important, and I hope you heard me, that the student needs to lead, because it's that student engaging online. It's like it feels a little creepy, right? Putting in your email address and your name, but fast forward, there are many schools when reviewing applications can see the various touch points a student did or did not do. And really, when it comes down to, when we say yielding a class, when they are offering admission and wanting to see who actually says yes, they want to yield a class and they want to do it efficiently, and they want to offer admits to students who can do the work, but also those who will come. So I think it's important for the information gathering, but also the line is and maybe Lee, you want to talk about this, about where too much or too little. It's being aware of it. There is a line between doing too much and too little. they're very busy in college admission, even with electronics files. I mean, they are constantly busy, and their reads are so quick, but it is being mindful. So if it's a college visit or a visit on campus, you can go visit not formally, but make sure that admission representative has it on file after you came back saying, I had a great trip and I didn't do an official tour, but it was wonderful, because that electronically for most schools will get tagged in a file somewhere.
Lee, any thoughts on this?
It's the admissions office, admissions
Mhm.
office. They want to hear from you, but they don't want you to ask a question that's on the front page of their website. So you really need to have done your work. And then that is their job. The admissions officers at a lot of schools have a territory, and their job is to know the schools in their territory, the curriculum in their territory. So if you have a good question, I mean, I could Google it for you, but it's going to mean more if the student finds it out for themselves. So they are there to help. Their job is to bring in great kids, but they're not babysitters, and they are busy.
Fair point. And just as we're getting closer to wrapping up, what advice would you give to students and parents regarding this entire application process? Any words of wisdom from your personal experiences in this area? Lee?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram because I'm really funny and I go to a lot of schools. And when we go to those schools, I take a friend, she's a mom, and we see the schools in the area. We go to the local brew pub and just have one flight of beer. And then we do the wildest and craziest thing we can do. We've been dog sledding, we've been treetop climbing. So I guess my point is, boots on the ground, get there, get the vibe, get the feeling. You're going to have that feeling. And when you have it, you're going to call me, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I had it. And it might not be fireworks, but see, look at the town around it. What is there to do around there? Is this someplace that you want to live and thrive? So get out to see colleges. And for those of you who are listening and like, oh, I don't want to go here, there, and everywhere. If you just go to Baltimore and see Loyola, Towson, Hopkins, and even Goucher, I don't care where they are or if they're a school you want to go to. You come back and tell us what you liked and didn't like about each of those environments. We can pull that field of 3,000 schools way down, because all 4 of those schools feel very different. And you could do it in a day or 2. I do want you to take the official tour and info session until you start understanding the differences between schools. But hey, the same thing with DC. You can hit 4 schools in DC and you'll have a real excited teenager who right now is going, I guess I'm going to college. Everybody in my family went. Or you've got someone that says, oh my gosh, I know maybe I don't have the ability to get into Georgetown, but I want a school like that. And Wake Forest is awesome. That's kind of where we want you to be. We want you to be excited about going, because you're going to have to work really hard, and essay fatigue is real. Kids don't think they get it. You want to limit that list because things get busy.
Sure. Elizabeth, any golden advice, words of wisdom?
I let the student lead. And that, what I mean by that is not saying they're on their own. I would hope not, right? And but it's the healthy checks and balances. And the student might not be there yet, but we want to get them there. And everyone kind of develops and is ready at a different time. One thing I had advised students is coming up with words. All the colleges start blending together after a while, right? So someday maybe I'll create a TikTok thing with me coming up with words after college visits. But I think it's important that, when I'm leaving, I just visited some schools out in Colorado last week or a couple of weeks ago, and it's remembering, because now it's been a couple of weeks. I'm like, wait, which one was that? Was that at UC Boulder, or was that at Colorado College? And this is a way to, because it as much as you think you'll never forget, you might, and then it's easier. It's harder to write an essay on that visit when you forgot. So I also, if I could, I don't think there is only one school. I think there are a set of schools that will be a great fit for the student, academically, socially, financially. I think the key is engagement. It matters where a student goes, because a student needs to feel comfortable, able to find their people, and also engage in the fabric of the university. That's what I do. I get excited for what's awaiting them when they get to college.
Me too.
Fantastic advice. Thank you so much to Elizabeth Almeter and Lee Norwood for being with us today to discuss the college application process. And thank you also to all of our viewers and listeners. Make sure you visit ChesapeakeFamily.com for up-to-date local information on home, health, and living for today's Maryland parent. This episode will be archived on ChesapeakeFamily.com in video and podcast format. I'm Laura Boycourt with Chesapeake Family Life and Third Floor Views. Thanks so much for joining us.